Hey booktube, welcome back to another video. If you can't already tell, if you're not someone that's been here before, there's a big hole in where my bookshelf normally has books. This is because today's video is going to be going over every Stephen King book that I own and sort of showing you guys just how many Stephen King books I have. A lot of you that are actually big Stephen King fans, probably longer time fans than myself, will probably notice that there's like not that many in my collection. And to be fair, Stephen King has published like over 60-70 books in his career, which is insane, and I've only been collecting his books for about a year, so bear with me on that one because I don't read fast enough to need to have bought all of his books already. I think we'll just get into it. I don't really have much else to talk about. I do have a just so some of you guys know, I did mention in my last video I might do a bookshelf tour. That video may or may not be in the works. It may be coming soon, probably not this week, but at some point. And I also have another project that I'm working on with a friend of mine. You might hear about that as well very shortly. Keep your eyes peeled for that because that is going to be something that I think a few of you might find very interesting, and we'll see what happens. Alright, so I'm going to start off this list of all my Stephen King books with the one that got me into Stephen King originally. This book is Carrie. Now, if you're someone that likes your little bit of high school drama mixed with your nice thrills and your horror and your gore, I think Carrie's that sort of book for you. I think it's a good introduction to Stephen King. It's not too long. You don't have to commit to anything, but it sort of gives you that early Stephen King. I don't know. I feel like for me, I divide Stephen King into like 3 sections. I know a lot of people seem to do something sort of similar. Stephen King, for me, there are certain periods in his career where he wrote very differently, and Carrie is the starting point of this whole Stephen King career of his, and you can sort of see that similar style of his reflected in other works for the next 10-15 years after writing Carrie. So I think if you're looking to get into his best horror works, definitely start with Carrie. Carrie's just a good introduction to Stephen King. The next book that I have here, this was the second Stephen King book that I read. This was Salem's Lot, which is also the second book that Stephen King published. This came out after Carrie, and I feel like it gets a lot of praise, but I don't seem to hear about it a lot. I loved Salem's Lot. It's probably one of my favorite Stephen King books. I don't think there's anything else really that I could say about it to persuade you, apart from it's definitely very underrated. But Salem's Lot, modern day Dracula, basically. The next one that I'm going to show you, I think I'll go with this one. This is Pet Sematary. It's not in order anymore. Who cares? These are just the ones that I've read so far. But Pet Sematary, third Stephen King book I read. Quite a scary book, actually. Quite intimidating. I don't know, I felt a bit like my boots were shaking when I was reading this book. There's a lot of dark moments in this story, and I feel like it's definitely one of his darker books. So if you're someone that looks for that bit of a dark horror, a bit of a thrilling read, has some supernatural themes in it, perhaps, I think Pet Sematary is one for you. Definitely has great characters, which is not anything new with Stephen King. I love Stephen King's ability to write characters, and Pet Sematary is nothing different. Next up, we've got Christine. I haven't read Christine, but it's the one about the killer car. I'm very keen to read this. This was Stephen King's first killer car book. I'm pretty sure from a Buick 8, which I don't have, is also about a car that is either possessed or has some sort of demonic thing going on. But Christine has a movie that I haven't seen by John Carpenter, the director of Halloween, and I've been wanting to watch that, but I refuse to watch it until I read the book. So hopefully at some point over this year I finish this book. This was actually the first Stephen King novel I picked up. I read about 30 pages and dropped it, but that was because I wasn't into reading at the time. So unfortunately it has been opened before, and I just kind of didn't dive headfirst into it. Next up, we've got Cujo. We have Cujo. I loved this book. Very fast-paced read, very engaging. I think it's something that I feel like a lot of people look at and think, there's no way that's going to be that good. But then going into it and actually giving it a shot, I don't know, it blew my mind. It was so much better than I expected, and I would definitely say that if you want to get into fast-paced Stephen King, bit of that horrific, gruesome, gory Stephen King, give Cujo a crack. It is a great book. Then we have, up next is Misery. Misery is one of Stephen King's most famous books, probably because of its adaptation, which won the lead actress an Oscar. But Misery, I've read about 50 pages into this one, and I'm liking it so far. I just haven't had a chance to really pick it up again, which is a bit disappointing. Then we have this chunker. We have The Stand. I did a video on this one on my channel already. I won't talk too much about this, apart from the fact that it's probably my favorite Stephen King book that I have read so far. So if you are interested in a good Stephen King novel, one that'll take up a couple of weeks or days of yours, definitely pick this one up. It is a great novel, and I think it's one that a lot of people don't look at because of its size. I say just jump into it. Another big chonker by Stephen King is one of probably his most famous work, It. I've read around 400 pages of It, and I'm intending on finishing it at some point, but not soon. I don't know why I dropped it. I think I just got bored. Yeah, at some point I'll finish it, and I'll give you a review on that, but that's another book that's sitting in my collection, and I should be able to breeze through these ones pretty quickly. I have 7 or 8 more books left, and I haven't read any of these, except for this one, which is Mr. Mercedes. This is a newer publication by Stephen King. Not very new, but like his later career work. I wasn't a big fan of this. I'm halfway through it, if you can see there. I wasn't a huge fan of Mr. Mercedes. It was good, but wasn't what I expected or wanted from a Stephen King book. So it kind of just fell out of the wayside a little bit. Then we have another newer novel by Stephen King, a collaboration with one of his sons, is Sleeping Beauties. Now, I read this for a class. I didn't read all of it. I actually swapped out of this book because I didn't think I could complete it in time for my assignment, but that's why there's like tabs on it and stuff. But this book, it felt like the start of The Stand, kind of. And I don't know, I just struggled a little bit to get into it, and it is what it is, you know. Next up on the list, I have The Shining by Stephen King, another one of his most famous works. Has a great movie adaptation by Stanley Kubrick. I highly recommend you watch that film. But this book, I hear so many great things about. Haven't had the chance to get into it though. So eventually, you're going to see this on my channel being reviewed. Then up next we have The Dead Zone by Stephen King, another book of his that I haven't read that I really want to. It seems very interesting, very cool. It has a lot of themes in it that seem right up my alley, but I haven't had the chance to check it out yet. So we'll see if I do pick that up and read it at some point over the next few months. Hopefully by the end of the year I will have read that. But yeah. Next we have a very unpopular book of Stephen King's. I don't know what made me pick this up. I just kind of saw it at the bookshop and went, I'll pick that up and see what it's like. Haven't read it yet. That is Cell. This book gets a lot of hate, and I don't know why, but I'm assuming it's because it's not very good. I haven't read it, so I don't have an opinion yet, but eventually I will, and we'll see what happens. The next one we have is The Outsider. This is another detective novel by Stephen King. I don't know if I like his detective and crime fiction. I feel like I'm more a fan of his horror and thriller stories than his crime fiction and his detective stories. Don't know why that is, because I like John Grisham, I like Jeffrey Archer, but with Stephen King I feel like his style doesn't fit how I want crime and thriller stuff to happen. I don't know, it's weird, but eventually I'll pick it up and see if I'm wrong about my own thoughts, but until then, we'll see what happens. And then I have his short story collection Night Shift, which has some of his earlier short stories. I've read not a whole lot of these. I will eventually get through it all, and I might talk about some of them when I have more strongly based opinions on them, but until then you won't really see much about that on this channel. But I do have an interest in his short stories, so we'll see what happens with that. And then last up is I actually finished reading this week. I mixed it between audiobook and this physical copy, and that is his memoir on writing. Now this is the anniversary edition, I believe, and this has a bunch of lists in the back of it of books that Stephen King recommends, and just extra little interviews and stuff, which is really cool. And I don't know, I think it's something that if you're wanting to get into writing and you like reading and writing and you just want to know more about the man himself, definitely give this one a shot. It's definitely a great, entertaining read. Very fast, very quick to get through. I don't know, I just feel like it's one of those books where if you're interested, definitely worth your time. If you aren't interested, you don't have to read it. It's not going to change your world if you aren't interested in Stephen King, but it might have some pointers that are sort of able to help you out, you know what I mean? Hopefully you know what I mean. Anyway, I think that's all for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've got some awesome books on your shelves to be reading, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Anyway, that's my whole Stephen King collection. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.